So, at last, and not surprisingly, the Catans have gone up in points as GW unleash new Necron points on us. Today, I'm going to have a look at my 5 different army lists from the 5 different detachments. And it's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, we've had our new Necron points for April 2024. Of course, we're getting point changes every quarter, so this is going to be quite a regular thing. Today we're going to discuss the point changes, then we're going to have a look at my 5 different Necron lists, one from each detachment, see what changes these points have made to the list and how I'm going to adapt them. Okay, so let's start off looking at the point changes. Now, it's pretty clear that GW are just trying to tweak some of those top-tiered armies. I mean, let's face it, we always knew that the Catans were going to go up in points, so absolutely no surprise there. This doesn't feel like they've looked at all of the units that we've got. They've just looked at the units which are doing really well in tournaments, the meta units. So yeah, let's start off with the Catans, the Nightbringer up 40 points, the Void Dragon 25 points, and the Transcendent Catan 10 points. No real surprises there, and it's probably about right. We've also got some increases on our characters. The Chronomancer going up 15 points, along with Illuminor, 15 points on him, and the Technomancer 25 points. That is quite a big hike. However, having played 3 Technomancers with 3 units of Wraiths, I can see why it's gone up by so much. Yeah, it's 85 points now for a Technomancer, plus, of course, any enhancements that you might take. And, well, the enhancements are pretty good for Technomancers, so, yeah, Technomancers went up quite a lot. The Plasmancer also went up by 10 points, and Immortals went up as well. 5 points for 5, 10 points for 10. We've also got an increase on the Monolith. 25 points more on the Monolith. 375 now. Now, personally, I haven't been using the Monolith yet. However, of course, I think they are in quite a few more competitive lists, so that probably is the reason why. But I must admit, I was a little surprised to see that. And lastly, we've got an increase on the Hypercrypt Legion enhancements, the Dimensional Overseer, going up 15 points to 25 points. A big increase, but arguably it's a very good enhancement. Now, it's not all increases. We did also get some reductions. We had 2 characters that both came down 20 points, the Command Barge and the Skorpek Lord. Not only that, but Skorpek Destroyers came down 2. 10 points for 3, 20 points for 6. Really helpful for the Annihilation Legion, which we'll see later. We also got some reductions on Flayed Ones. They came down 10 points for 5, 20 points for a unit of 10. Now, I use Flayed Ones in a few of my lists, and that's a really nice reduction to see. Again, especially for Annihilation Legion. Now, we had a points decrease, which I was really surprised to see, and that's Death Marks. They came down 5 points for 5, 10 points, of course, for 10. Now, for me, Death Marks are in every list that I have. They're pretty much my auto-include unit, because they're fantastic for deep striking in and doing secondary objectives. So yeah, to come down in points, that was a shocker. I'm really happy with it, and shh, don't tell Games Workshop. Now, last but not least, we got some points reductions on the Ophidian Destroyers. 10 points for 3, 20 points for 6. A most welcome reduction. So, overall, not too bad. Some would say we got off quite lightly. However, you have to think about the future. There's quite a few armies still to come that don't have their codices. We don't know what their rules are going to be. If we've got too bad of a points increase, then maybe that would really push us down the pile in the future as all these new books come out. So that's the point changes. Now we're going to have a look at my army list. We're going to see what these changes have done to those lists, and then we're going to adapt them. Of course, all of these lists are at 2,000 points. So press the like button and let's do it. Now, if you've been following my channel, I've been making list videos for each of the detachments. The one video which I haven't made yet is on the Awakened Dynasty. However, I do have an Awakened Dynasty list. It's actually my index list that I used, and I adapted it for the Codex when the Codex first came out, and my very first game was with this list. Now, one reason why I didn't make a video about this list, which as I said is my index list, is because it's not really taking full advantage of that detachment. I've only got one HQ attached to one unit, so definitely not taking advantage of it. However, I found, especially in the index, that this list was the best list that I could come up with to actually win on the table, and I was very successful with this list. And indeed, when the Codex came out, it seemed to perform really well. I am going to have a look at an Awakened Dynasty list, making more use of the special rule with characters, but for now this is my Awakened Dynasty list, and actually there weren't too many changes. The flayed ones and death marks both came down, so I gained 20 points there, but the Catan went up 10 points, so this list was 10 points lower than it was before. And to be fair, I can't get an extra 10 points in this list. I've got an enhancement on all three of my characters. So yeah, no change really with this list. It's exactly as it was. As I said, I do plan to do a new Awakened Dynasty list, but this list does actually perform very well. Oh, I was hoping never to have to make a video about this detachment again, because I can't pronounce the thing. Obeisance. So, having played all of the detachments, I'm going to move on to the Obeisance Phalanx next. One of the weakest detachments, which I was hoping would have some points decreases, but that hasn't been the case. So this is my original list. It's very themed around the detachment rule, Triarch units and Overlords. I had a lot of fun playing this army, and I actually did win the game that I played. However, I don't think I won because this is the best list in the world. Actually, it is one of the weakest detachments. Well, it's certainly one of the two weakest detachments. So I was really surprised when I added the new points up for this list that actually it cost me 40 points more than the 2,000 points. It actually went up 45 points because, of course, I had 5 points spare in my original list. The Chronomancers and the Immortals going up, and of course I lost 5 points on my death marks. Now, if you want to find out more about this list and also any of the other lists, then I will link all of the list building videos for you in the description below. But this is how I went about changing this list. 40 points is what I had to drop. Now, I had two units of deep striking Praetorians, which basically are doing the same job that death marks are doing. Yes, they have some extra abilities and they have the 2 wounds each one, so they're definitely better than death marks. However, I felt the easiest way to take some points out of this list was to reduce those 2 units down to 1. So 1 unit of Praetorians. I then added in an extra unit of death marks to do the role that the Praetorians were going to do that I dropped, and then I exchanged my Locust Destroyer for a unit of Scarabs. And that left me with enough points to put an enhancement on the Overlord that didn't have one originally, so he's got Honourable Combatant. It's not the greatest enhancement, but it did soak up the extra points which I had to give me an exact 2,000 point list. The list works exactly the same as it did before. It's not the greatest list in the world, but it is a lot of fun to play, and I'm definitely going to play it again, but I probably won't take it up against one of Richard's really hard-hitting new Orc armies. Okay, so let's move on to our second weakest detachment, the Annihilation Legion. I do believe the Obeisance detachment is the weakest one. The Annihilation Legion has got some benefits from this points reduction, so I'm really interested to see what this has done to my list. Of course, this Legion is themed around destroyer units and flayed ones, although the Locust Destroyers and the Locust Heavy Destroyers don't really benefit much from this. It's all about Scorpec Destroyers. This was my original list. As you can see, I've got a lot of the themed units from this detachment, and that means we've got quite a few point changes. The flayed ones came down, the Death Marks came down, the Ophidian Destroyers came down, the Locust Destroyers came down, and the Locust Lord came down. In total, 160 points cheaper than it was before. That is a lot of points, and I got a bit excited about how I was going to change this list. Well, this is what I did. Now, as you know, I really do enjoy themed lists, and I was a bit disappointed in my list building video that I didn't have all Destroyer Cult units in this list. So that was my first starting point. In the list, I've got some Death Marks. I quickly exchanged the Death Marks out for a second unit of Ophidian Destroyers and an extra Hexmark Destroyer. That gives me 4 deep striking units. The 2 Hexmarks will go into reserve, and the 2 units of Ophidians will stay on the table and then jump up turn 1. I seriously considered dropping my 2 units of 3 Scarab Swarms for 2 single Locust Destroyers to do what they do on the table, investigate signals, etc. But even though Scarab Swarms are not Destroyer Cult, I do think they do the job slightly better than the Destroyers do, and I really wanted to make this list as good as I could. So instead I took 1 unit of 2 Locust Destroyers and 1 unit of 3 Locust Destroyers. In my previous list I only had 1 Locust Destroyer, and the idea of that was to have him on my home objective. Well, now I've got 2 smaller units. I'd love to have had 2 units of 3, but I didn't quite have the points. But I'm quite happy with a unit of 2 and 3. They're just going to work around my home objective to help me secure it, and also for some extra shooting. To be fair, there wasn't a lot else I could do. I'd already maxed out on flayed ones, Scorpec Destroyers, the Locust Heavy Destroyers. I could have added more Ophidians, but I only have 6 models, so that's all I could do. So overall, I'm really happy with this list. I can't wait to play it. I think this list is better than it was. It's still definitely not one of the best ones, but I'm looking forward to playing it on the table. Okay, so let's move on to the top 2 detachments that we have, starting with the Hypercrypt Legion. This was my original list, 2,000 points, and I'd had good success with this list, scoring really well. However, after those initial games, I did actually tweak the list, although I haven't played with the tweaked version. I haven't made a video about it, but just for reference, this was my tweaked list. I really hope the microphone isn't picking up that idiot drilling. So what I did is I introduced a new unit, the Wraiths, and they were to sit on my home objective. My home objective was a bit weak previously with 2 destroyers. No. Oh, for God's sake. How can you think, talk, concentrate, or do a video for YouTube with that noise? I decided to put in a unit of Wraiths to literally sit on my home objective. They will definitely be more of a deterrent for my opponent to come in and take that objective, and I think they would have the staying power which my other list didn't have. To get the Wraiths in the list, I had to reduce 1 unit of 10 Death Marks down to a unit of 5, and of course drop the 2 units of Immortals. This gave me some points left over, so it also took the auto advance enhancement on one of my Hexmark Destroyers. It's quite useful actually. You come down, and then obviously once you've done your action or whatever, it means you've got some extra movement to get into a different position if you need to. However, I didn't play this list, I haven't played this list, and of course we've had some point changes. Now because I haven't played this list and I've made no videos about this list, I'm going to go back to my original list and work the point changes out from there. Now this list actually only went up 75 points, which isn't actually too bad. Of course we've got some big increases on our Catans. The Immortals went up, and the enhancement which I had on my Hexmark Destroyer. However, I did lose some points on my 2 big units of Death Marks. Now, I've heard of people talking about a much bigger increase than my 75 points on their Hypercrypt Legion list, nearly 300 points in some cases. Of course, they're probably using things like 3 units of Immortals, maybe a Monolith, plus those C'tans. So I was quite happy with my increase of just 75 points. However, it did mean I had to drop 75 points, so this is what I did. Again, just like my previously amended list, I dropped one of the units of Death Marks down to 5, and actually I split the other unit of 10 Death Marks into 2 units of 5. So I had 3 units of Death Marks. I also dropped 1 unit of Immortals. That gave me 60 points left over, so I took 2 single units of Locust Destroyers. These are going to work with my Immortals on my home objective, and I'm going to have another go with this list and just see how I get on. Whether I change up for Wraiths in the future, I don't know, but for now, this is my new Hypercrypt list. I'm pretty happy with that change. I've still got my 3 C'tans in the list. The list works exactly the same way, and I'm really looking forward to playing it. Okay, so on to the last detachment, the Canoptic Court. I'm really happy with my list. I've had a lot of fun with it. It's performed very well. It is based around, of course, Canoptic units, particularly the Wraiths. This is my list. I've got 3 units of Wraiths with 3 Technomancers, 3 Doomstalkers, 3 units of Scarabs with some Spiders. We've got 3 units of Death Marks, a couple of units of Acanthrites, and a single Locust Destroyer. However, points-wise, of course, because of the Technomancers mainly, I got an increase of 65 points on this list. Of course, the Death Marks came down in points, which countered some of the increase from the Technomancers. Now, I had 2 units of Acanthrites in this list, and they were there to infiltrate. I nearly took 1 unit of 6, but I did split it down to 2 units of 3. They were going to infiltrate along with 1 unit of Wraiths. The idea was to get onto objectives early game, mainly in case I get cards the first turn where I need to take central objectives. But to be fair, you only really need 2 units to do this job. So I decided to drop 1 unit of Acanthrites. Now we've got banging. Drilling or banging, make your mind up. I then added an extra Locust Destroyer to join my other Locust Destroyer, a little bit like my Hypercrypt Legion. The idea is that they are there to stay on the home objective. Of course, you can have Doomstalkers on your home objective, but sometimes they need to come off because of line of sight reasons. So yeah, an extra Locust Destroyer just to help secure my home objective. Then I was 10 points too much, so I had to change my enhancement. I took away the enhancement where I can gain CPs, because this enhancement only works if you're up against an army that can gain CPs. I think it's a very useful enhancement, and I would absolutely love to have it in the list. However, I couldn't quite squeeze it into the list. So I took the other enhancement instead, where your enemy takes mortal wounds when they charge you. I think this is a bit more all-round as an enhancement, even though, once again, it's only going to work if your enemy charges you. But overall, once again, I think the changes I've made to this list isn't going to hurt how the list works. That unit of Acanthrites coming off doesn't really change how the list works. And I'm really looking forward to playing this Canoptic list. I have to say, out of all of those 5 lists, this list is the most fun. It's the list I'm going to use in my next battle report, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Check out all of the links in the description below for all of the list building videos, or here's a playlist with them in, and here is a playlist with all of my 10th edition battle reports.